Hi guys, I'm Ruslan. Let's get into this shocking story right now.
The hospital called me at 17 and m to say my husband's wife was doing fine. Congratulations, the nurse said, bright with the kind of tired that still believes in purpose. Baby boy, 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Mom and baby are stable. I was in bed, alone. My husband, Aaron, had told me he was on an overnight shift at the rehab clinic covering a colleague. No phones allowed on the floor. I sat up so fast my throat forgot how to swallow. I'm sorry, I said. Who did you say? Aaron Lang's spouse, she repeated, checking something, confident. This is the emergency contact number on file. That's me, I said, but I am his spouse. A paper shuffle on her end, a silence with edges. Then perhaps there's a... The mother listed him as spouse, and your number as emergency contact. Ma'am, do you know a Maya read? I did not. Not yet. I memorized it like a wound. I'll be there, I heard myself say. Tell him I'm coming. I didn't wake anyone, not even the dog. I didn't look in the mirror. I put on my clothes in the dark, as if shame were light sensitive. The car started on the first try. The streets were empty in that way only hospitals and storms make necessary. The stoplights blinked yellow, a metronome for a song I didn't know the words to. At admissions, the woman with nails like careful decisions asked me for ID. I handed her my license, my insurance, my name. She typed with the speed of someone who has learned to move without catching fire. Labor and delivery is on 3, she said. Take a left at the mural. You can't miss the mural. I didn't miss the mural. It was a wall of hands painted in colors. Too cheerful for anything that hurts. Reaching toward the same sun, I thought about how many hands you need to bring a person into a room, and how few it takes to push one out of a life. The maternity ward smelled like plastic and warm laundry. I stood outside 314 and listened to the sounds of a new human being, a snuffling like paper, being rearranged, a sigh like a small breeze being born. Then I heard Aaron's voice, low and tender, the voice he had once saved for me in rooms with lamps turned low. Hi, little storm, he whispered. You did it. The door was ajar, the curtain partially drawn. The nurse walked past me and tapped the chart like a conductor. He's perfect, she said. Skin to skin in a minute. Is she okay? Aaron asked. Textbook, the nurse said. She's a champion. I pushed the door. Aaron turned. He smiled on reflex. The way you smile at nurses, at babies, at any new thing that hasn't had time to disappoint you. Then he saw me. I watched the exact second a human face unlearns itself. Love and terror fought for space. Terror won. Julia, he said, because names are triage. The woman in the bed. Maya looked up. Her hair was plastered to her forehead in damp ropes. Her eyes were the fierce kind mothers grow in minutes. She did not recognize me. Why would she? To her, I was noise in the hallway. Aaron, she asked. Who? My wife, he said. And then to me, smaller. I can explain. It was such a stupid sentence it made me steady. Explain with full sentences, I said. Start with the part where a hospital called to congratulate me on a son I didn't know we were having with a woman I've never met. Fill in dates. Don't decorate. The nurse moved to speak, then did something holy. She left. The baby made a small noise, a punctuation, a claim. Maya shielded him with her arm like a moon shielding a planet. She looked at Aaron with a question that rewrote every previous question she'd ever asked him. You said you were separated, she said, quiet like a scalpel. He sat in the visitor chair like it had authority. I am, he said, to both of us. We are. Julia and I we've been living like roommates. We share a mortgage, a bed, and a dog, I said. We file jointly. His mouth worked around words like he was chewing them for someone else. I didn't know how to. I didn't want to bring a baby into the part where I failed. You brought him into the part where you lied, I said. Maya's face changed, not toward me, not away from me, but inward, into the room where you keep the version of yourself that makes decisions. She kissed the top of her son's head and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she looked at me. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know who that's for, I said, but thank you. The nurse returned with a blanket as soft as a mercy. You don't believe yet. Do you want to hold him? She asked me, because the universe has a sense of humor that makes me suspicious. Maya nodded once, deliberate. She can, she said. I washed my hands under water that came out too hot on purpose. I sat and took a person into my arms who had done nothing wrong. He made a face like he was remembering a joke from another life. He smelled like bread and sleep. I wanted everything and nothing all at once. I whispered, welcome, because a door had been opened and I didn't know how to close it without hurting all our fingers. Aaron watched me with a look I couldn't classify: longing, terror, inventory. When the nurse left again, he said, "Julia, please." I looked at him over the baby's head. "How long?" "7 months, he said. "We met at the rehab clinic. Maya runs the evening art therapy program. We talked. It was slow. I swear to God, it was slow. Slow like waves eating a coastline," I said. "You notice when you're missing a yard." Maya's jaw tensed. "He told me you were out," she said. "He said you were interviewing in another state." "I went to a conference," I said, "for 3 days. I brought home a mug and a headache." The baby wriggled. I handed him back with the caution of someone returning a borrowed future. I stood. There's a physics to this kind of moment. What can be held, what must be set down, what will break regardless. I set my marriage down in the hospital room of a woman I had never met because my hands were full of something more honest than vows. "I'll call you after your shift," I told Aaron, and said shift like I meant delivery of any kind. He nodded like a condemned man nods at the sky. In the elevator, a poster told me postpartum depression is common and treatable. I stared at it until the doors opened and the world pretended to be the same world it had been at 2:16 a.m. At home, the dog looked at me with absolute faith, which is a kind of cruelty if you're not ready to carry it. I lay on the floor and let him step onto my ribs the way toddlers step on furniture. His tongue was an argument for staying alive. When I finally slept, I dreamt that my house was an aquarium and I was slowly adding water, cup by cup, careful not to drown the furniture. At 9, Aaron called. "I'm sorry," he said, on a loop, like a rosary that only had one bead. "That's a feeling," I said. "I need a schedule. How did you imagine this? Where do you think you live? Give me logistics. Give me a map of your lie." He breathed like a person learning to be underwater. "I've been splitting time between nights at the clinic and at Maya's. I put your number as emergency contact because it's the number I would call if I died. You used me as paperwork," I said, "not as person." "I thought." "You don't get to use the word thought without a proof," I said. "Here's what happens next. You will tell your parents. You will tell mine. You will tell your boss you had a child and you will tell him with what woman and with what marriage, and if you hedge I will arrive with a birth certificate and a calendar. You will formulate a plan for money that doesn't involve me paying for the life you built with someone else. You will bring me every bill you hid, every receipt, every lie as if it were a blood sample. You will sit while I look at them. You will not perform. If you perform, you will leave." Can we do therapy?" he asked. "Therapy is for people who want to keep the thing," I said. "Right now, I want to inventory it." We told the parents. His mother cried and said we'd always rushed things. Mine asked if I wanted lasagna because love is a casserole with annotation. We told the boss my version, not his, and HR made a new folder for us because institutions are tidy even when people aren't. We told our friends, who sorted themselves into two camps, those who used the word mistake as a blanket, and those who used the word choice as a knife. Maya and I texted. It was stilted at first. "How are you?" As a form of CPR, she sent a photo of the baby's foot like proof that he was here, and small and shaped like hope. I sent a recipe for soup you can eat with one hand and cry into without anyone knowing. A week later, I met her at her apartment because we had to turn a scandal into a calendar. It was a one-bedroom near the hospital with plants that had learned patience and a bookshelf that knew which books had been held by exhausted hands. She handed me the baby. "He is everywhere," she said, apologetic. "The apartment is all baby now." I lived for 10 years with a man whose job was other people's recovery. I said, "You don't have to apologize for the visible." We made a schedule. We printed it, then threw away the paper and texted each other instead, because paper lies politely and phones timestamp. We talked about money and insurance and names. He didn't have one yet. "I call him Finch," Maya said. "Shy, like the bird." "It fits," I said. "Small with a loud heart." She laughed. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "I hate the sentence we are separated when it's not true." I believed him, she said. I didn't check. "I didn't check either," I said. "Different thing. Same weather." We formed a weird arrangement. Two women who refused to be enemies convening around. A boy born into the fog between a lie and a life. Aaron floated at the edge of it, fidgeting with apologies like a man adjusting a tie he didn't choose. People asked me, people who love you ask you so many questions when they are afraid of your silence. Why? I didn't set everything on fire. why I didn't lawyer up and take the house and the dog and the dignity he borrowed. The answer isn't noble. It's simple. Finch existed. When a person exists, you build around them. You don't burn the scaffolding while they're sleeping on it. We tried therapy. A woman named Leon sat with her pen and asked why we wanted to be in the room. Aaron said because he wanted to keep the life he had with me and the life he had with his son. I said because I wanted to not be destroyed by the language he used to justify himself. Leon said, so one of you is here for addition, the other for subtraction. There is no common operation. I loved her immediately and paid her cheerfully to say it again. Aaron moved into a small furnished place near the rehab clinic. He said he wanted to make it nice for Finch. I said do not build a nursery out of my savings. He said of course, and he meant it. And then we found the credit card billing for a crib that cost more than a couch. I sent him a photo of a sturdy used one and the words, babies don't read price tags. He wrote back, I wanted to give him what I couldn't give us. I typed honesty and put my phone face down. He tried to be two men. It exhausted all three of us. He overpromised and underarrived. He cried when Finch fell asleep on his chest, and then cried again when Finch cried for his mother at 3 a.m. and he was the wrong body. He sent me photos at weird hours because he didn't know which time zone you use for a life that you lied into existence. He made a spreadsheet called balance and I watched him drown in it. When Finch was 6 weeks old, he got a fever. Maya texted me a photo of a thermometer and the words, help. I jumped into my car so fast I left my bag behind. At urgent care, Aaron arrived with his face still damp from a shower he hadn't had time to finish. Finch was pink and furious and fine. I held him while Maya filled out forms. When the nurse asked for a family history, we looked at each other like we were reading the same book for the first time. His father has a brother with asthma, I said. His mother's family has anxiety, Maya said. High functioning, bad at rest. That last part isn't a diagnosis, the nurse said gently. It should be, Maya said. And we all smiled because sometimes the room gives you permission to act temporarily normal. After, in the parking lot, Maya handed Finch to Aaron and said, take him for the afternoon. I need to sleep without listening. Aaron looked hoisted and holy, terrified and chosen. He put Finch into the car seat with a caution that made my heart do a thing I didn't expect. It steadied. Whatever else he was a man who could learn a harness. We burned through the first year like people pushing a heavy boat over sand. Sweat and stubbornness and small, halting progress measured in inches. My house got quieter and then less quiet. I learned the exact sound of my own keys in the lock. I learned that grief is not weather. It's geology. It moves continents while your eyes are on the sky. Finch learned to sit, then fall, then stand, then prefer the falling on purpose, because falling makes adults make excellent faces. He said bye and meant everything. He ate a blueberry with the seriousness of a person reading a legal document. He figured out that dogs will tolerate anything if your hands are very small and very sincere. On his first birthday, we stood in Maya's apartment under a banner that read one, in letters cut from old maps. I brought a cake shaped like a sun because everything felt like weather anyway. Aaron cried when Finch put frosting in his hair and then laughed, because boys teach their fathers mercy with their hands. My parents came. Aaron's didn't. They sent a card that said family is a V or B in gold letters. My mother put it face down after reading it once. After everyone left, I stayed to help Maya wash frosting off plates and off the underside of the table where Finch had achieved what all babies aspire to, expanding surface area. The apartment was a crime scene of joy. We stood in the kitchen and listened to the quiet that follows a party, which is the best kind of quiet. Do you ever think about staying? She asked. Where? I said. In the marriage, she said, with adjustments. I don't think of it as a marriage anymore, I said. I think of it as a bridge that crosses a river I no longer need to get to the other side of. She rinsed a fork. Do you ever think about staying with him for Finch? I think about staying with Finch for Finch, I said. And I do. She nodded. Me too. Aaron came in with Finch on his shoulder, both of them smelling like baby shampoo and hope. Finch reached for me. I took him and felt the particular calibration of a child choosing you without asking you to become someone else to be chosen. I cried then, a little, in a kitchen with a woman who could have been an enemy and wasn't, and a man who could have been a husband and wasn't, and a boy who didn't have words yet for any of it and didn't need them to be okay. When I finally filed, it was on a Wednesday, at a courthouse that had seen better carpeting. I chose no fault because the fault was omnidirectional, and the effect was enough. The clerk stamped the papers with a sound, like a door closing in a part of the house you rarely visit. I stood on the steps and texted Aaron. It's filed. He wrote back. Thank you for not setting me on fire. I wrote, that was for Finch, not for you. He sent the thumbs up emoji, because some men treat language like a tool. They haven't read the manual for. Months later, after lawyers and meetings and forms that asked me to list the reasons, I thought people should know my business. I stood in front of a judge with a name like a bird and answered questions. Yes, no, yes, no. The syllables fell into place like stones across a creek. The judge said, divorce granted. My body felt taller by the height of one truth. After, I went to the park with the big oak that makes everyone look honest. Maya and Finch met me on a blanket that had seen better wash cycles. We shared strawberries and the kind of silence that doesn't ask for payment. Finch toddled between us like a diplomat with very short legs. Aaron arrived late, hair damp from a shower he finished this time. He sat. He looked at me like a man realizing that apology has an expiration date and gratitude doesn't. Thank you, he said, eventually. For what? I asked. For not letting me make my lie your map, he said. For building a town around a truth I gave you too late. Build your own town, I said. We visit. We don't live there. He nodded. Do you want to hold him? He asked, and we all laughed because the answer was always yes. I took Finch and he leaned back against me and stared at the canopy of the oak, the leaves moving like a language he would one day learn. He pointed and said, Dad. We all looked up as if he had named a new thing. That night, at home, I took the emergency contact form out of my wallet, the one with my name and number on Aaron's old HR file, and put it in a drawer labeled archive, not alter. Not trash, a record. Then I wrote a new card and put Maya's name and number under in case of emergency for me. I looked at what I had written and it made a kind of sense that didn't require approval. My house is quiet now in a way that doesn't feel like a test. The dog still presses his weight into me when I look too long at the same wall. My friends come for dinner and we talk about books and bills and bodies and nothing that requires a violin. Finch visits on Tuesdays and I keep plastic cups and a dinosaur spoon in a drawer that used to hold wine charms for guests who never arrived. He calls me Juju because Julia is too many stairs. Sometimes he falls asleep on my chest and I remember the hospital at 2:17 a.m. and the way the universe thought it was doing me a favor by dialing a number that was about to change. Here is what I learned. Betrayal is not one action, it is a set of coordinates. If you map them, you get a shape you can walk out of. Love is not a permission slip. It's a policy that has to be reapproved in the minutes where nothing interesting happens. Babies don't care about your metaphors. They care about your chest and your voice and your willingness to stand in a kitchen with other people who survived the same meteor. If you want a question for the comments, here is mine. If the hospital called you at 2:17 a.m. to say your husband's wife was doing fine, would you go? And if you did, which door would you close afterward, the one behind you, the one between you, or the one he keeps trying to open with the wrong key?